almost completely because it's been receiving $2,500 a year from you, and that typically isn't sufficient to do even one task. So we're very grateful for that additional $500, which then allows that one task to be completely paid for without the Friends group. This group, the Samuel Smith Farmstead, is so young that it does not have any endowments, and it has not generated sufficient funding so that it can do so much as even have an investment. So it's literally taking in $5 and spending $5, and there's just been no growth. So we are challenged in that respect. Do you have any questions about the $2,500 or the $400?
Questions? No questions? No
All right.
questions.
I just want to let you know that we talk a lot about the physical plant. As the Historic Properties Commission, we are also taking a very serious look at preserving all of our historic properties in a digital format. We can do, but if we can digitize something, we at least have representation of it and identification and hopefully some illumination on that item going forward. And we feel as though that's very important. Everything gets old, and we're at a point in time where we can, digitize many of these items, from the smallest piece of realia to a piece of ephemera to, a picture of the first fire truck, and then preserve it for posterity. So this year's $400 will probably, as I said in my narrative, it'll all be applied toward the creation of a town-wide digital platform that will be consistent throughout. And we are working very closely with Lisa Timothy and the library board in order to do that. Lisa and I are working on 2 grants at the moment, so that hopefully we can build some capacity and actually do some initial pilot projects to demonstrate the efficacy of this approach. And the $400 we're looking at purchasing an arm so that we can put an iPad on it, and that people can take it around to all the houses and all the places that need to be digitized and literally photograph them on site. And things don't even need to be brought into the library in order to do that.
Okay, no questions? Thank you.
Right?
Oh, just
Yeah,
a quick one. So you're also supported by the Friends, the same Friends group?
No.
No, it's
The
different.
town of East Lyme established 2 different groups. They paid for 2 different houses 40 years ago. The Brookside Farm with a commission and a commitment to fund that house. I don't know how many years ago they did the
So-
Samuel Smith.
So all the money that you're asking for here,
All
$3,000.
$3,000.
That's all you need to run that property
Absolutely
for
not.
the entire year?
Not at all. In fact, I'm glad you asked, because I have $93,000 worth of repairs that are urgent.
Wow.
And that, we haven't even, some estimates, but we haven't even been made. We probably have $150,000 worth of repairs that are urgent at this point. But
So-
we just don't have any money.
So
And-
how much are the grants that you are working on currently?
Right. The Samuel Smith Farmstead Friends are working on their grants, all right? And I actually don't know, because again, they are a Friends group, and as a commission, we're working on the digitizing grants. But we would, and I say we, I actually mean the Friends of the Samuel Smith Farmstead, would have the same challenges in that all of these grants ask you for matching funds, and they also assess your need. So the need is based on the needs of the town of East Lyme, and the revenues and so on and so forth of the town of East Lyme.
I have a question.
Yes.
So does this go into the record? for
Please, I
Karen?
have another copy of it.
You don't have
I'll be
anything?
happy to give you both.
Oh, she can have this copy. I just jotted.
I got it. There you go. And,
Oh my God, that's scary.
Copies for the record,
Here we
and have
go.
it in their minutes.
all right. Here, do you want to pass her? Anyway, I'm sorry, I just lost your question.
No, that was it. I was just wondering how you manage on
No.
$3,000 a year for
No.
that property.
Not at all managing.
Yeah.
Not even a prayer of managing. I'm just giving you the information.
Yeah, that's good information to have.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
I have one question, though.
Go ahead, John.
Oops.
No, one more
I have
question.
one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is this Sam Smith House, is it designated as a historical property?
Oh, yeah.
So you can get grants through that, being a historical
The
property?
Historic Properties Commission, our commission,
They
we
do it,
researched
yeah.
and made a list and of a number of grant possibilities, which are posted on our town website and made available to all of our historic properties, the 3 houses. The Friends groups need to apply for these grants for specific
Yeah.
needs.
Because I know, you can, again, correct me if I'm wrong, that historical properties, when these people look, that have the grants, look at these properties, they have a
Mhm.
priority list,
Yep,
depending on the age of the property, the condition of the house, and how much it looks like property in the past. That you
Mhm.
can't put any modern shingles on it or
Right.
whatever.
right,
So, and they send people out to the property to look at it, right?
right.
And then they
Right.
determine where you are in the grant process.
The Samuel Smith Farmstead has been successful in getting archaeological reviews. That's been its initial focus,
Yeah.
because they needed to know. I mean, I wasn't living here, and I apologize. I don't know what year the Samuel Smith property
Probably
was
8 years ago,
purchased.
10 years ago. maybe.
All right. And at that point,
Yeah.
there really needed to be some additional research. They knew the house was sometime in the 1600s, so they were able to get grants to then do some archaeological research.
Yep.
And now we know the age of the house and the condition that it's in. And it's an excellent representation. It's one of the few in the nation that is in as close to its original form. It had, I think, on total of 4 families since the 1600s, and it has very few modifications made to it. So it's an extraordinary piece of property.
Yeah, because I go by it almost every day, because I live right down the street.
Well, there you go.
So I can see,
Well-
you know,
Well, and that's why I gave you the list of things that we're doing. And when we spoke before you last year, and I'm not going to put any of you on the spot, but nobody had ever been there.
Oh, I've
So,
been there. I was there with Luann
Good.
many times.
All right, maybe you weren't at that meeting. So I just want to make sure that you knew what we had going on this year.
Well, do you still do the community gardens?
You know, the Rotary was partnering with the Samuel Smith Farmstead on the community gardens, and
Thank you.
it just didn't work out.
It's just not enough manpower,
Not enough
volunteers.
manpower. And that was very
This is
unfortunate,
another
because
copy of the
everybody
same
loved it.
thing.
Yeah.
We've already got a copy of that one. This is the other one.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's great, thanks.
all right,
Good luck to you.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Okay, now I can get up.
Now you can get up. Thank you. 217 Niantic Fire Department.
Before you start, I feel like I want to have looked at this information you gave us in our green folders, Anna, and say something smart about it. But I haven't had time, obviously, to look at it. So if there's something that's discussed and you think that the information you gave us is relevant, I'd really be grateful for your help.
So, I'm sorry, so the purpose that I did, the reason that I did, provided you with that information is, to help you as you work through the budget and come to where, you finally wanna go. The part-time firefighters and the overtime, they're always like, subjects of discussion.
Sure.
And I just thought it would be helpful for the board to see, okay, every year, what was the original budget? What did we end up spending? And how much over or under the original projection were we?
Okay.
It doesn't give any information as to where we obtained the extra funds, because obviously if we spent more than the original budget, we had to do a transfer in. So, it doesn't include any of that information. It was just to strictly show you beginning balance, amount expended, and, what the excess was.
Okay, even that's helpful, because I really haven't looked at it yet, because I didn't have time. So thanks for that. Anything else you want to share with us as we review this? I'd appreciate it. Thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm John Dwyer. I'm the Chief of the Atlantic Fire Department. And I asked Chief Ricks to join me up here with some of the information that we're going to share with you tonight. First and foremost, this is my first budget. Newly elected fire chief. So I guess I'll just start from the top. So obviously, there's a large budget increase. We're anticipating, Chief Ricks and I, of hiring 2 nighttime firefighters to help supplement our needs and the town's needs. So that cost is incorporated in my full-time budget.
John, let me explain that further so you understand what you're seeing here. We're adding an overnight firefighter in each department. You see it, one in this budget and one in your next budget. It will come with a revenue line that will cover it 100%. We're still working out the details. There's a lot of details involved with this. I'm sitting down with a firefighters union on this in about 10 days. If this doesn't come to fruition, not only the expense line will disappear, but the revenue line will disappear. It's a wash. If we can get it to work, we're going to get it to work. And the Ambulance Association, by the way, the revenue side is the Ambulance Association will be paying for that overnight firefighter.
For how long?
Well, those are the details that are going to be worked out.
Well, you must have an estimate, or you're a ballpark.
The initial agreement is they'll pay for both for 5 years?
5 years.
5 years, and then we'd split it. They'd pay for one, we'd pay for one for 3 more years, I believe, right, Bill?
No, sorry, it's
Is it
3 years.
3 years, that's what I thought. Okay.
Currently, we haven't gotten it back from the other town's attorneys. It's 3 years. The ambulance will pick up the salaries for the full-timers, and the town will pick up the benefits. Year 4 and 5, we'll pay for one whole firefighter. The town pays for one whole firefighter. And then at 6, 7, and 8, we'll wean the ambulance money off to make them full town employees.
We'll wean it off 25% at a time over 3 years.
And would you be able to repeat that for us, just so we can jot that down?
Okay.
So the first 3 years,
So, yeah, this is all
100%
tended-
salary by the Ambulance
the ambulance.
Association. 100% coverage.
Up to
from-
10%, up to 10% over the contracted salary to cover any unexpected overtime.
How many years is that? Did you say
That,
3?
the first 3 years.
3 years. Covers 100%. I'm sorry to jump on you there, Camille, but I
That's
didn't quite
okay.
get it either.
It's a good question, Lisa, though. I'm glad we might as well just get these details out of the way.
So 100% for 2, for each fire department, right?
Yep,
For 3 years.
of the salaries.
Okay,
And 100% on the town for the benefits.
Yes.
okay.
No. Years 4 and 5.
Years 4 and 5 is split. The ambulance pays for one whole person and the benefits, and the town pays for one whole person and the benefits.
Do the benefits include retirement contributions?
There are the benefits.
Whatever.
That's all
Yes.
there is?
Whatever the
health?
benefits
I
are.
don't know what the union does.
Health.
So, but
benefits,
it covers
salary.
everything, retirement, health.
Right.
Okay.
As an employee would receive.
I have a question about the 5 years. Is there basically for most firefighters a 5-year contract that's happening, and that's why you're using that 5-year?
No.
No,
reference?
that's just the initial number we came up with to get the process started.
Okay,
We need guys at night, and this was our best way of approaching the town with kind of meeting in the middle type of avenue of going about things. We need help, and we
right,
need your
right,
help as well.
okay, just a question on that, thanks.
So I know this is has a lot of tentacles, but Mark, I was asking you about this before. It helps to understand what the Niantic, or what do they call it again? East Lyme Ambulance? Is that what they are?
The
East Lyme Ambulance Fund.
East Lyme Ambulance, East Lyme. So what do they do that's different than what you guys do, and where do they get their money from?
We're East Lyme Ambulance Fund. We're volunteers as well as part-time, full-time jobs elsewhere.
But they have a fund somewhere,
So
right?
that would very much confuse them, John, if you're sitting here in your fire uniform saying you're the ambulance association too. So, no no offense to you
No,
or
I'm
you.
not
So
hearing it that way.
it is,
None taken.
it's crazy, right?
So
So there's an ambulance association that's privately owned by its members, and its members usually consist of the volunteers
Of the Niantic and
of the
Flanders Fire
Niantic
Departments.
and Flanders Fire Departments. Those are the members and those are the owners.
Why do they own it? I don't get it.
It's how
I
these
can
things are set
I can
up.
give you a quick synopsis of the whole.
Good.
Can you, I don't mean to be, but be quick.
No,
I don't mean
no,
it
that's
to be
fine.
unkind. There's
And
just
every,
a
it's
ton of
just
ground
every
to
year we
cover.
have to explain
Yeah,
how
I-
both everything works. So, so real briefly, the East Lyme ambulance started back in the 1940s with one ambulance operated out of the Niantic Fire Department. Due to the increased call volume in the north end of East Lyme, in 1973, another ambulance was added and operated out of the Flanders Fire Department. Back then, the qualifications for riding the ambulance were just an advanced Red Cross CPR card. In the late 1970s, the state of Connecticut mandated that emergency medical technicians must be part of the crew, which put a hardship on the service because the state at that time only offered 2 classes a year, and the ambulance which solely ran off of donations, only could afford to send 2 people a year. Around 1988, the L&M paramedic service started out of the hospital, which became a tremendous burden on our residents. The residents had never received bills for ambulance service before, and medical insurance covered ambulance transports, but did not cover paramedic service. So when residents were receiving bills of upward of $800 that weren't covered by the insurance, those need to be payable to the hospital. The ambulance service operated completely on donations, like I said before, which averaged about $22,000 a year. In 1997, there was a need for Flanders ambulance to be replaced. We approached the town for financial help with that, and we were completely denied at every end. So for the first time in history, the ambulance service had to borrow money for the purchase of the ambulance and hope that we'd make enough in donations to make the payments back. It was obvious that the ambulance service could no longer survive on just donations. It was decided in 1998 that we would need to start billing for the ambulance service. The billing was primarily for the insurance company portion. We were one of the last towns to start billing for this because we didn't want to have to bill our residents. About the same time, other towns were running into the same problem for the paramedic billing. The state of Connecticut passed a bill allowing the medical service to bundle their billing with the ambulance service, therefore making it payable for the insurance company, and then that was a tremendous decision that still operates today with great success, so people aren't footing the whole bill anymore. With the large increase in call volume, it has put a substantial strain on our volunteers, which is, like we keep saying, is the national trend. The proposal for the 2 full-time firefighter EMTs is completely warranted and tremendously needed. The overnight calls have increased dramatically, and with our volunteers having difficulty responding and then going up to their full-time jobs during the day, it's becoming a lot of wear and tear on the guys that we have left.
This problem persists in the whole state?
Yes.
If I have a heart attack at home and my husband calls 911, is he going to get the fire department or the ambulance association?
The ambulances are parked in the fire departments. So when you call 911,
It's a dispatcher.
we, as firefighter EMTs, the dispatcher will collect the call, tone us out. Volunteers will get up out of bed, drive to the firehouse, start the ambulance up, drive to your house, evaluate you, treat you, and transport you to the hospital.
So what's the difference between an ambulance person, what's the right word?
An EMT.
Niantic ambulance
No,
volunteer.
EMT.
Lyme ambulance fund.
Yeah, and the fire department, you're still the same guys, right? You're just in a
Yes.
different vehicle. Am
We're-
I oversimplifying?
We have many certifications and qualifications, one including being an emergency medical technician, which
Yeah.
allows us to operate and drive ambulances, which are parked in our fire stations.
The ambulances do not have a wage line. They use our firefighters to operate their operation.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, firefighter EMTs operate East Lyme ambulances and Niantic and Flanders Town of East Lyme fire apparatus.
So when you say the East Lyme ambulance is owned, privately owned, I'm not understanding that. Why do they want to own, what's the return on owning the ambulance? You know what I'm saying?
Why are they private?
Yeah,
Is it non-taxable?
Yes.
Yes.
That's part of it, probably.
well,
We, like I said, we've operated for the longest time on our own because the town didn't want to help us out and it was on us. What we got from the town was you can use our full-timers to ride the ambulance, but now our call volumes become so much that it's just not enough. So by doing these two guys, you're not only getting EMTs for the ambulance, you're getting paid certified firefighters to get the fire engine out as well.
I'm trying to understand, though, I'm not following you. I believe you, I believe what you're doing, but I don't understand why the ambulance, the car itself, isn't just part of the fire department. Like, how does the East Lyme Ambulance Association raise the money? How do they have the money?
We bill for the ambulance calls. The
East
state,
Lyme ambulance.
the state sets the
Oh.
rate of what you can bill for what type of ambulance call.
Oh.
And then the insurance pays out a portion of that bill. They don't pay the whole thing. And then that money goes into our operating budget, and then from our operating budget is where
that's
all our
it.
in-kind comes from. Like, we pay for the fuel, we pay for fire gear, pay for renovations of the buildings that the town can't afford. All that money, and I have some rough numbers, for about 14 years back, I'm missing a couple of years in between, but we're a little over $2 million that the ambulance is given to the town and in kind.
I'm sorry, how much was that?
2 million.
2 million.
Over how many years?
14. And I'm missing years in there that I couldn't find the paperwork.
So what kind of, tax-wise, what kind of, I'm gonna say corporation, business is it? It's under.
It's a 501.
Huh? 501?
And every town does this?
There's many different relationships, but it's rare that the town actually runs its own ambulance service. You have a private ambulance service. You could have an ambulance service with its own EMTs and have its own firefighters. If you're wondering why it's hard to get volunteers to be firemen, they're not. You can understand the training that must be involved here, because our firefighters aren't learning just how to put the hose on the hot spot of the fire. They're also learning how to save lives.
So what does the East Lyme Ambulance do with the rest of the money? Forgive me, that they
Our
make.
operating budget is around $500,000 a year for what we have to pay for equipment that we use on a daily basis, drugs that we have to buy that expire, whether we use them or not. We're right around a $500,000 operating budget.
Purchasing new ambulances.
Purchasing putting money away to purchase new ambulances. So we have, basically, like you guys have a CNRE
Yeah.
account, we have a savings account that we know every 5 years we have to buy a new ambulance, because at 5 years there's over 100,000 miles and it needs to be more reliable.
And how much does the Ambulance Association take in a year, roughly
You'd have to
speaking?
get the FOI on that.
Well, just ballpark me. A half a
I
million, a
couldn't tell
million?
you.
You have no idea?
I couldn't tell you.
Do you have any idea?
I'm not privy to the information.
Oh, who is?
Their association, and I'm not sure that is
Yeah, that's
FOIable,
right, yeah.
because it's not a government entity, so maybe it is, but I'm not sure that we can
Well, it's
get.
a 501, so I think it's.
Well, it's probably public information, correct. Probably when you're looking up that other thing, Ann,
Let us all know when you do that.
Okay, so thanks for that brief history. That was important. I hope we didn't all feel we were digressing too much, but I really was
No, that's very
flummoxed about that
No, I mean,
relationship.
like I
No,
said,
it's
we,
huge.
we have 7 full-time firefighters in town. I mean, just to give you a quick, rundown too. In 1980, there were 10 full-time police officers. Over the course of 39 years, that department now consists of 24 officers, 1 chief, 7 sergeants, 2 detectives, 2 K-9 officers, 11 patrolmen, and 1 part-timer. Well, in the same 39 years, the fire service has only had 5 firefighters and only added 2 from 1980. It's mostly been volunteer-oriented we've been able to handle for so long, but it's come to the point where we need to start catching up to everybody
In the
else.
last 15 years, you've only hired 1 additional firefighter for the town's needs in 15 years. Our
So-
volunteers can't keep up with the call volume.
Is that document also going to be entered into the record? The one that you just
Yeah.
read?
It's fine.
That'd be good, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I make a recommendation, it's John, right?
Yes.
So, I'm just thinking, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but because this is such a comprehensive budget, I wonder if we could just ask our questions. I mean, because if John goes through every item here, poor guy's gonna have laryngitis by the end of the night. I wonder if we could
No,
ask our
I think it's
questions.
just the top 4 lines.
Sorry?
I think it's just the top 4 lines that you're gonna, everything else is
Okay.
pretty much what we.
All right, I didn't know what your
I've asked
intention
for.
was to go through the budget.
So finish your question.
So I just thought perhaps, I mean, maybe those are the salient points that John wants to present to us, but then maybe after that point, we could just ask our questions rather than asking John to go through this line by line.
Oh, so you want to take a break after each section so that we can ask the questions?
Well, I don't even know that I was gonna say maybe we don't need John to go through every line item here. and then justify it. We've got all the notes and everything.
Okay.
We could just, the ones that he, as he just said, that are of interest to us are gonna be under personnel services. And then we could just ask our questions after he does personnel services on anything in this budget
Okay,
versus, or as you would say, vice, going through every line item.
that's fine. I mean, each department's got their own story to tell, and how you can tell your story best is up to you. So if you want to go through your budget line items now and describe what you think salient, what's important, what's changed significantly. and-
So, my second line item, 612, is my part-time budget. I originally asked for 156,000. That's not obtainable. Anna's provided you with this worksheet here. Going back over the last 2 years, I've had to come back to this, or the fire chief has had to come back and ask for more money. And as I said before last week, I would rather not do that. I'd rather come to you with a number that's truthful and honest, and a way that I can get from the start line to the finish line, and provide the services that the town and the community need. So that being said, the $156,809 is just not realistic. I'm on track for about $171,000 this year alone. We spent $170,000 last year, and then it dips down 155. It went up 156, went to 150. I just don't have the volunteers I had, and that's just it. I can't get. I can only rely on the guys that are getting up in the middle of the night now to do what they have to do. And weekends, holidays, East Lyme days, working fires, all that matters, and I need the help.
Do you have any trends of call volumes? We asked for that at our last meeting.
We had submitted a report earlier, and I do have that here. Actually, I have a couple copies.
I'm interested in that, given the population has gone down the last couple of years.
I have just 2 of these copies.
Oh, I was using,
It's the prison, the male prison population came off of our prison. our
so I got those
population
numbers
rolls.
off the ledge light.
Yeah, and
budget.
it's the total population of the town is down technically if you count the prison population, and the male prisoners were shipped out of this location and will no longer be housed at Gates. So, there's more houses in East Lyme, there's more population in East Lyme proper, but we don't have the male. I think it was 1,500 prisoners. They moved out of town. We don't get charged for them now with the ledge light. So
that could-
there's a.
That 1,500 prisoners male prisoners were down the street here. So that can't include, this drop in population can't include those prisoners then, because the drop in population last year was 97, the year before that was 457, according to Ledge Light Health District. So that it must not have been included all
At the
along.
peak, it was 1,500, so I think the last remaining closing the door of Gates was probably about 500 2 years ago. When they moved the male population out. That's probably that 450 figure that you quoted from 2 years ago. When Gates was up and running, it was 1,500 10 years ago. And they slowly decreased that. But the
So-
women's population's gone up a little bit there too, so that might be a little counterbalance.
So to answer your question, just to break this all down, because there's a lot of numbers on that sheet that I gave you. But altogether, just the Niantic Fire Department, just Niantic, so the Grand Street Station and the West Main Street Station, we did 1,873 calls.
And what was
That's-
it last year, do you know?
That's from July 17th to June 2018.
Right, do you have trend data, though?
I don't have, the previous
Yeah, that's what I'm interested
administration
in.
before me did not. I don't have that. I could obtain that through NFERS, but that would take some time. Obviously, it's not something I could get you tonight. But the
No,
trending data, I can confidently tell you, is roughly between 1,800 and 2,000 calls a year that our services are providing, and that's with that's with the 4 full-time firefighters where I have Monday through Friday. That's with the part-time firefighters that serve the community from 5 PM to 11 PM, and then nights, those nights, Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends, 8 to 11 PM. And then everything else is volunteer. So, you know, I have one part-timer working on a Saturday, but, you know, it takes two to make an ambulance crew. It takes, you know, 4 guys to make an engine crew, 4 guys to make a ladder truck company crew, you know, that sort of thing. We've got, you know, 3 guys mandated in a boat for a Marine Bay emergency. You know, those are just some examples. So our trend is, unfortunately, for the volunteers, is depleting, and I need to rely more on paid staff.
Well, you do pay the volunteer firefighters for going out on a call, correct?
No.
No, they just,
Volunteers are volunteers. Some volunteers work as part-time firefighters.
Right.
And when they're on the clock, they're on the clock. But
Right.
Outside of that, it's volunteer.
Right. So like at
but
11,
don't some municipalities pay their volunteers
there's some
on a per
stipends.
call?
They'll give
Yeah.
stipends out, or they'll give tax breaks or tax credits, et cetera.
So we don't offer tax
We
breaks?
just started the tax.
We
just
just
started
started the
last
tax
year.
this year.
So we've yet to see the rewards of it because it hasn't been a full year yet, but.
And we have
Just started.
stipulations that meet that too. Not every volunteer is privy to that,
Yeah.
to that tax incentive.
You have to be certified.
Volunteer.
You have to be
See,
certified,
or
and you have to make
firefighter
so many
one.
calls. You just can't just show up to the firehouse and say, I want to be a volunteer,
Right.
and you're going to get the tax credit. I mean,
Right.
you have to put in the time and the
Right.
effort, and, you know, you have to have the certifications and the qualifications to do so.
Okay, so that's a recent change, but.
Yes, from
so-
last year to this
so
year, yes.
Have you talked about maybe offering a stipend to,
A stipend?
yeah?
No.
Where would we get that money?
Yeah.
Well, if we could save some money from overtime
Right.
or hiring additional people down the road by offering, so then you just pay as you go. Then
Right.
you pay when you need it. You don't have to, you
But
don't.
that doesn't solve our problem between now and when we get there. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna
Yes,
need.
yes.
So that's
No, this is
not.
all information for you to absorb and
Yep.
think about for the next year.
Okay.
Maybe the year after that. I'm sorry, you're probably not done, Lisa. I didn't
No,
mean
it's
to
all right,
jump
there's
in.
a lot of stuff, we're all narrowing in or whatever. No, but I think what you're saying is a good point, right? I mean, if you could offer stipends, you may net more volunteers.
You
So,
may, you might, with a stipend, I think you might keep the ones you have. I don't think we're gonna pull any more people in. To be honest with you, we both came up in the volunteer system over 23 years here, trying to do the best we can to keep the volunteers and the paid staff. It's just not realistic anymore.
I
And we're
understand the
moving
problem.
toward the paid staff, and it's gonna keep coming every year.
yeah, my father was a volunteer for years, I'm
Yes.
familiar with the
You
whole.
told me that last week, yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question about the overtime?
Sure.
So, on the sheet Anna gave us,
The new, this sheet?
yeah,
Okay.
there's an estimate of, if I'm reading this right, 77,961 for this year in overtime. You're asking for 103 though, right?
Yes, so the
Help me out there.
103, so I guess I'll move down, I was on the part-time budget line, but I'll move down to the next line. That 103, that's including the nighttime individual, so that's one more full-time firefighter. So that's included in the package, so I'll have not 4 full-time firefighters now, I would have 5 once the town and the East Lyme Ambulance Fund has made an agreement.
All right, so that's his or her overtime,
Correct.
and he's not,
That's
that
incorporated,
person's
so
not on
that's,
staff.
again, that's holidays, that's East Lyme Days, special events, storm coverages, working structure fires, hazardous materials incidents that require a number of personnel to the scene, that sort of thing.
What's the revenue item at the bottom?
So the revenue is what the ambulance association, right?
We'll pay.